Welcome to episode 229. Today I'm interviewing author Brent Jones about his thriller Serial, the Afton Morrison series. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, I am your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're listening. Here on Book Chat, we get bookish with roundtable book discussions, book recommendation lists, interviews, and more. Be sure to check out shelfaddiction.com for even more content. Before we get started, let me tell you a bit about today's interview guest. From bad checks to bathroom graffiti, Brent Jones has always been drawn to writing. He won a national creative writing competition at the age of 14, although he can't recall what the story was about. 17 years later, he gave up his career to pursue creative writing full-time. Jones writes from his home in Fort Erie, Canada. He's happily married, a bearded cyclist, a mediocre guitarist, and a proud owner of 2 dogs with a God complex. If you'd like to comment on something you've heard during today's episode, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Shelf Addiction, or call in and leave an internet voice message via SpeakPipe. The links for everything related to today's episode are below in the show notes. Hey Brent, thanks for joining me today. We have some fun stuff. Are you excited?
I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
Awesome. Okay, so let's kick things off as I always do. Share with us what books you're currently reading right now.
I just finished reading Bonfire by Kristen Ritter. I didn't even know Kristen Ritter had written a book, but I found out she did, so I gave it a read, and I liked it. And I just started reading Fight Club today.
Fight Club, that oldie but goodie?
The oldie but goodie. It's a short read too. It's different. Like if you've seen the movie, I mean, I guess that goes with any book. If you watch the movie first and then read the book after, it's like it's always interesting trying to like match it up with your expectations, right? I should have seen it coming. I didn't expect this guy to spend so much time living in his head, but I'm about halfway through right now, so it's pretty good. It's one of those things I always meant to read and never got to,
You're a good one, because I can never do it in reverse. I always read the book, then see the movie. But if I see the movie first, I can't go back and read the book.
You refuse, huh? Just out of principle?
Well, it's just because I'll have the actors in my head instead of what I would form on my own by reading it.
Right.
And, it's harder to me to go backwards.
Right. I think it is for most people, to be honest. But I don't know. It was one of those things. I haven't seen the movie in probably 20 years now, to be fair. At this point, or however long ago it came out, since then. But I don't know. I thought I would give it a try, and see what I thought.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so tell me a little bit about authors that you love. I would love to know if you have a favorite, or even if you have an author where you just click buy, no matter what the book is, you just buy it.
I don't know that I have any authors like that, because I'm actually pretty open to reading just about anything. I'm always more drawn to character-driven stories rather than plot-driven stories. So I really tend to like flawed protagonists. I tend to gravitate towards things that are a little bit more gritty. So some of my favorite authors are authors that inspire me when I'm writing characters would be like a Douglas Copeland or Nellie Arcan, Mordecai Richler. There's 3 examples I thought of off the top of my head because they're all either present tense or past tense are or were all masters at crafting these flawed protagonists, these people that were actually really hard to like. And I tend to think that most of us, in real life, we tend to operate in gray areas a lot of the time. We're not all perfect people. And it's one of the reasons why I can't watch superhero movies. Like, it's just, I can't watch somebody who's bulletproof because it's too far of a leap for me. I need a little bit more realism to it. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you sway more towards Batman than Superman then.
I do, if I had to pick. Yeah.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's like, because we know Superman's got a weakness and whatever, but I mean, I just, the dude can fly. I mean, it's too much for me. I don't know. I know I sound like my father now as I start getting older, right? It's like, stuff's all stupid on TV. Everybody's got magic powers and stuff, but my reading tends to go that way too. I like real characters that even if there is an element of supernatural in their universe, I go, this is a real person. Like I could picture this person being real, like existing in this world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's easier for us as readers to connect with people that are imperfect versus someone that is, oh, this is just the perfect protagonist. They're right all the time. They just always do the right thing. All of that. It's not fun and we don't relate to it.
It takes me out of the story, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm waiting there. I'm like, you got to peel back some layers. Like, show me what's wrong with this person. I know it sounds bad. It's like watching reality TV. Like, show me how awful this person is. That's what I really want to see.
Yeah. Cuz I know they're worse than me. That's
They at least equally bad.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so you've gotten a lot of finished titles under your belt, or a good amount. Tell me a little bit about what inspired you to start writing in the first place.
It was something I always wanted to do, and timing just kind of worked out. So my wife and I started a business together a couple of years ago in social media management back in 2014. We did quite well with that. The only thing is, I don't really care for being on social media. Like we built a nice business for ourselves, but I didn't care for a lot of the work, like hanging out on Twitter and Facebook all day, even if it is on behalf of one of our clients. It's like, it's not really my thing. So I knew I wanted to make an exit from that. And I wanted to kind of figure out, like, what do I want to do next? And my wife is very supportive and encouraging. And she's like, we'll hire some help, like, to kind of fill in the void for you, take some time, figure it out. And I spent a couple of weeks thinking through different options, things I might like to try. And it kind of came back to me like, I've always wanted to write a novel. I've always wanted to try writing a novel. I used to love writing kind of into my teenage years, and then writing stopped being cool somewhere when you're a teenager, I guess. The 20, you get into your 20s and it's kind of like you got bills to pay and things to do when you're kind of building a career. And I'm like, I'm at this point where I can take a step back and try writing a book. And then kind of one novel turned into another novel and a series of short stories, and now a thriller series coming out this year. It was kind of one of those things when I started doing it, like this was something I kind of regret that I didn't start years ago. I really could have started. I could have started writing full time a while ago. But sometimes things just have to line up in your life, kind of at the right time for the right reason, to say, hey, this is the time I'm going to kind of jump in with both feet here and see what I can do.
Absolutely. I always say better late than never. So
Sure,
good
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
My thing going into it is I agreed. My wife and I talked about this, and I'm like, I'm going to take an exit from the business here for a couple of years and work on publishing some fiction. And I thought, the worst case scenario here, since I self publish everything, is I'm like, maybe I won't sell a single book. Maybe nobody will like my writing. Like, that's the absolute worst thing that could happen, right? It's only upside from there. So I figured there was absolutely no harm done in trying, and seeing what would come of it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. After you've written some things, you figure out, hey, I like this. What kept you on the self-pub route instead of like pursuing a, big publishing house?
It's not to say that I wouldn't want to pursue a big publishing house at some point. Like, if somebody wants to show up at my doorstep with a big sack of cash and say, like, we'll trade you this for your next manuscript, that's fine. I'm totally open to that.
You're like, I'll take it.
I'll take
Yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah. But for me, so a lot of it was timing, right? Because if you're starting out and you don't have a traditionally published title under your belt, you can spend a lot of time trying to find representation or get collecting a lot of form rejection letters. And I really didn't want to spend the first 5 years of saying, all right, I hate to use the word abandon, but like I kind of ditched my wife here in this business we built together. I'd like to at least have something published and something to show for it. And we can debate all day about what's better. Is it better to self-publish? Is it better to be traditionally published? The truth is somewhere in the middle. Both have merit, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take kind of the opposite approach and say, I've had quite a bit of experience in marketing and sales and connecting with other people and networking. And maybe it would make more sense for me to start by self-publishing. And then I have a few more cards to come to the table with, a few more chips to come to the table with, later at possibly looking at a traditional deal. Like, hey, I was able to build an audience of loyal readers here, going the indie route. So I actually have something now other than just a manuscript and a dream, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's always a personal choice. And I've seen lots of books. We all see lots of examples of where, even something on Smash Words has been picked up by a publisher,
Yeah,
repackaged, and
yeah.
it's a hit. So, I mean, that always happens, So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, it can go either way, right? And so, again, from my perspective, what I really set out to do was like, hey, let me take at least 2 years to write fiction full time, and then see where I am at the end of that. And I just didn't want to get to the end of that 2 years saying, all right, I don't even have a book published at this point, right? I'd rather have something
Hmm.
to put out into the world. And hey, does that mean I'm going to write fiction full time forever? Not necessarily, right? But for the time that I do it, I want to be able to have something to show for it in that window, right?
Yeah, very cool. I like it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Afton Morrison series.
Sure.
And this is a serial thriller. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me a little bit why you decided to make this a serial type situation instead of like full books.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that I get a lot, and a lot of it ties into being self-published, like to being an indie author. The way I looked at it was this: I knew this was going to be a long story, all said and done, and I knew that it was going to happen in sort of pieces or parts. If I published it as one complete novel, it would have been a novel in several parts. And so I thought, for the length and the size this is going to be, especially as a print book, um, for somebody to take that gamble on me as a relatively unknown indie author, they may not want to invest 10 hours of their time into reading this fairly long book, or however long it takes them to read, or such and such amount of money. But I'm like, if I can split it into one, into four smaller ebooks, four shorter installments, it's a lot easier to approach a reader who's maybe never heard of me or isn't familiar with my writing and say, hey, this one book on its own, is not a massive investment of your time or money. It's a chance to sample it, and if you enjoy the story, you can of course continue with the rest of the series. So that
Hmm.
was a big part of it. The other part was just as far as the pacing and kind of the story arc goes, I thought it made more sense to be a serial, to be split into parts. And there's also a part of me that feels like, even though sometimes serials, when it comes to publishing books, uh, I don't know, I feel sometimes like um, they're not always looked at positively. I really feel like that's a lot of how we consume content now. Like we're in the day and age of Netflix, right? Like that's how we consume content, is we binge it, and we typically don't see a lot of successful TV series anymore that have like a weekly standalone new episode. You know what I mean? They're almost always weaved into a bigger story or a bigger serial. So
Hmm.
anyway, for all those reasons, when I started putting this together, I decided I wanted to do it in four installments. And come October, after book four in this four-part thriller series comes out, the whole thing will be published as one print book. So it will be, so for somebody who'd rather say, like, I'd rather read the whole thing as like one complete novel when it's finished, that will be an option. And it will also be available as an audiobook too. All that stuff is done and ready to go. I'm just not releasing it until the four parts have come out individually.
Awesome. I love that you're doing an audiobook. I cannot say how many times I wish that indie author would do an audiobook. So I applaud you. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you. It was so much fun too. The
Yes.
girl that does that did act, and she had an amazing voice for it. It was kind of funny because if you're familiar with the process, you're going through ACX to hire a voice actor. You get a lot of auditions, and sometimes it's like, I don't really like anybody here, or I like a lot of people. And it was just one of those things when Kristen James, KJ, the voice actor, she's based out of Tennessee. When I heard her audition, I was like, that's Afton. That's exactly what I wanted. So yeah, she was awesome. We've got that all done. Actually, just finished today. It's all done and ready to go. Basically, just have to submit it through the approval process on ACX, but I won't be doing that until sometime in October.
Well, when it's out, give me a shout. I'd love to see what the audiobook sounds like.
Sure, yeah,
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Afton Morrison series. Tell me
sure.
about it, like plot wise. What's going on here?
So the story, I'll start really with book one, I think, because I mean that's really what kicks off the series of events for the entire series. So Afton is 26 years old. She's a children's librarian in a small fictitious Midwestern town called Wakefield, which is where I set quite a bit of my fiction. And she's a very studious, normal, productive member of society, except that she has this proclivity for wanting to kill people. And she's never killed. She has these violent urges inside of her. And when a known sex offender in Wakefield slips through the cracks one too many times, she decides that he's going to be the perfect target for her first kill. But sort of as predicted, not everything goes as smoothly or as according to plan as Afton might have hoped.
Wow. Okay. I like her already. Like, okay, I do. I'm not going to lie. I love a strong heroine, but I also like one that's real. And I like sometimes where you're like the anti-hero, like you're doing the right thing, but maybe not the right way. That's what she sounds like she's doing.
This is a recurring theme throughout the whole series, is that she has a lot of good intentions. Her mother's dying wishes were that Afton would make the world a better place, right, and spend her life doing good for other people. And so her mother passed when she was 15 years old, and it was around that same time that she first developed these urges to want to commit murder, to want to kill a person. And it's kind of funny because she's a quirky character. She wears like long pleated skirts and ballet flats and hipster glasses, and she's a vegetarian, and she's got a goldfish that she adores named Twinkie. So the whole premise here was wanting to create a character that was almost too believable, where you're like, yeah, if I've lived in a small town and I know a librarian there, like, they don't seem like the type of person that would want to stab a guy in his sleep, but who knows, right? So,
oh my gosh, right?
yeah. So she's a really fun character in that sense, and writing it in sort of this like as a 4-part story created lots of opportunities to peel back layers and learn more about her character and the path that's led her to where she is today.
Okay. So I got to know this. Obviously, Afton is a woman.
Yes.
So is this from first person and third person? And what made you want to write from a woman's point of view?
Wow. Okay. So there are so many great questions in there. Let's see if we can. Okay.
Let's break it down. Let's start with first or third. Let's start there.
Yeah. It's written in first person. And this was something that I was very cognizant about. Because and I'm sure you've seen this online if you've looked. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to men writing women, right? Because there's the phrase, if you haven't checked it out, check it out, this subreddit. And I think it's like pinned, or it's always one of the top posts in there. Like this male author writing a female character who writes the phrase like, she breasted boobily to the stairs and titted downwards, right? Like these are the kinds of things men write when they write female characters. It's awful. So I wanted to get a lot of feedback as I went, to be very careful that I wasn't doing that exact same kind of thing. So, my wife's always my first beta reader, right? So she calls me on BS usually pretty quickly, right? It's like if something doesn't sound right. My editor is a woman. It's the same idea. Like, can you please give me feedback if something sounds off here? Tell me. And actually, with book 1 in the series, I worked with a small group of beta readers as well, who went through it. That I made sure we're all female beta readers, and I think I don't think I did anything too horrible. I think it's if you check the reviews so far, I don't think I've offended any women yet. But specifically, why I guess maybe it was a stereotypical thing in the sense that most children's librarians happen to be female, most librarians in general.
Mm-hmm.
I spent time shadowing the children's librarian, who's about Afton's age here in Fort Erie, and the character Afton is absolutely not based on this children's librarian. I'm pretty sure our librarian here in Fort Erie doesn't kill people or want to kill people, so not based on her at all. But Afton is first person. She's certainly not what you'd consider like a delicate girly girl kind of type, but that was the character that I wrote, and I wanted to really stop and think through, like, who would be the least likely person in a small town to be a murderer. Who's the last person you'd suspect of a violent crime? And I'm thinking this like 26-year-old freshly graduated children's librarian. That's probably about the last person you'd suspect of planning to kill you while you're sleeping.
Oh, I don't know. Some librarians can be kind of like scary. So is so
I
is she come across kind of like the opposite of that? Like she's so nice and young and fresh, and then she's a killer kind of thing.
she's very crass in her head. On the surface, she's very good at wearing masks and
Okay.
being a chameleon, right? So that's the tagline for the first book: is that we all wear masks. So we kind of get the sense we're dropped into the story where Afton obviously hasn't committed her first murder, and we're kind of part of her planning her first murder in the first book, Go Home, Afton. So we get to see kind of two sides of it. That she can be very rough around the edges, and she's very much an introvert. And she likes to keep people at a distance, but when it's time for a reading program at the library and she's got parents and kids there, it's it's a whole different persona that they get to see.
Yeah. Wow. So you decided on a librarian just from the fact that you thought that they would be the least, obvious person for a killer.
A children's librarian specifically. I don't know if that matters or not, whether she's a children's
Yeah.
librarian specifically, because she has rules. She has a moral compass for herself. She would never hurt a child. She doesn't like children. She wouldn't hurt a child. Um, but it was also the kind of thing, like, for Wakefield is this fictitious town of about 10,000 people. I was trying to think of, like, I wanted to make her like a professional, like, well educated type. I'm like, what kind of jobs might there be in a town that size? And most small towns still have a library. Even if they don't have, say, like, you have to drive a town over to go to the hospital or something. They have a library, most likely. So I was kind of debating between librarian or teacher. Like, I think either of those would have worked pretty well.
She sounds a little bit crazy in the best way possible. So
Yeah.
do we dig into kind of like how she got this way at all during the
Yeah.
series?
Yeah. There's a lot of room to speculate. I don't like to have I don't like spelling out everything for readers, in the sense that I want there to be
No,
a bit of
no.
mystery, right, as they progress through the
Yeah.
series. So we see in the first book that she's revisited by a mysterious figure from her past that really threatens to turn her into the target here. So there's a lot of her risking life and limb as the story goes on to sort of in this futile effort to try to make the world a better place, even if it means, using violence as a means to get there. But yeah, so I really think I think there were a lot of points where, and I'm only basing this in part by reading reviews, as people have read the first book, and the second book in the series is out now, and review copies of the third one are out because that book is being released in September. I'm seeing a lot of speculation from people about why is she the way she is, and why does she have these desires. And I don't like to have a series or even a standalone novel wrap up everything super neat and in a bow at the end of it. But in book 4, in the last of the 4 books in the series, we get a much stronger sense of closure about the events that led up to where Afton is today. So I don't think I've actually told that to anybody yet. Not on social media, not to my mailing list, not my website, but for everyone. It's
Exclusive.
exclusive. It's here first. So book 4, I think, is going to answer a lot of questions for readers that they may have had throughout the rest of the series.
Awesome. So does Afton have any friends along for the ride with her? Someone to kind of help balance her, or does she have like a support system of some kind?
Yeah, she's very close with her older brother, who became her legal guardian once their mother had passed. Her older brother Chris, who's very much kind of like a man's man type, with he likes to go hunting and I don't know, that kind of stuff. I'm not a man's man type myself, so I'm like, I don't know. I assume what these guys do, like they go hunting and they smoke cigars with their buddies. I don't know. That's Chris. That's her older brother. And then she ends up with sort of a reluctant cast of helpers along the way, in the sense that as things begin to unravel and Afton finds herself in new and more challenging situations, she ends up, yeah, absolutely bringing people along for the ride that she really would have preferred to have kept at a distance. Sometimes wrong place, wrong time, and sometimes it's her sticking out her neck to, stick up for the underdog, protect somebody that she's close to, or that
Hmm.
she feels as being wronged. And I shouldn't say close to. Afton's not especially close to anybody, but certainly uh, somebody that she feels as being wronged potentially in a situation.
Hmm. Outside of Afton, is there another character that you really felt like really excited to write for?
Oh, gee. I mean, are we talking about a different book or within the Afton Morrison series?
Within the series
Within the
altogether.
series. Yeah, there was sort of the main antagonists throughout the series that we're introduced to very early. Afton doesn't learn much about his name or his identity, but this mysterious figure from her past, she dubs the Man in Shadows, and he was a lot of fun to write. Afton, arguably, even though I call her the protagonist of the series, really, if you look at what she's doing, she's actually kind of evil, right? Like she's she's plotting to kill people,
Yeah.
but really, she's written as the protagonist of her own story, and her main antagonist is somebody from many years ago in her life that she reconnects with. And part of the reason. There's a lot of shadow imagery throughout the story, and there is a purpose to that. But I wanted to create this almost larger than life character. Again, I'm not really big on supernatural and fantasy and that kind of thing. And if a lot of your listeners are, I'm sorry, but I try to keep things in the realm of possibility as much as I can. And so creating a character that was almost ubiquitous, almost, knew her every move and knew where she was going and knew what she was thinking and already knows that she's planning to kill this person somehow, even though he'd have no way of knowing that. That was a lot of fun, right? Because part of me, the
Hmm.
rational part, went, I have to come up with a good reason for why this guy knows the stuff that he does, and a good reason for why he's been following Afton and what he wants with her. And largely, that's what ends up the series hinges on is the interactions between this person that she knows as the Man in Shadows and her competing urge to do good in the world through violence.
Wow. That is very powerful stuff. Go good in the world through violence. Yeah.
It's not a message I'm trying. It's kind of funny because somebody commented to me when they read it. They're like, there's a lot of good messages in here, and I'm like, I hope you don't take this too seriously. I'm not encouraging vigilante justice, out in the streets or whatever.
Oh no.
It's just supposed to be an entertaining read, right? But I feel like
I mean,
sometimes
it's fiction, guys. Don't go out and start killing
don't
people,
don't
okay?
stab people, don't stalk people, like
Yeah.
don't do it. That's not, and
Yeah.
if you think you might one day stab somebody, like maybe don't work with children for your day job either, just in case, right?
I recommend a good therapist. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, well, this sounds awesome. So, when the final book is out, is October. After that, are there any other plans to revisit this world, or are you done with Afton Morrison?
I hope not. Again, I really wrote this story as intentionally as a 4-part serial. That's what I wanted to do, but I left it. I don't want to make it sound at this point like book number 4, Time's Up Afton, comes out October 29th. Readers who've read through the whole series will be, I think, happy with the ending. I think they'll feel like they got closure, and I think they'll be very happy with how this story for Afton wraps up. But that being said, there is the opportunity to write more books in the future. There could be more parts added to this story later. So a lot of that is going to come down to how excited my readers are, I guess, about the ending. If they wanted to see more parts in this series, I'd be happy to write them. I'd love to, because this was a very different vein for me. Everything I'd written up till this point had been sort of literary fiction, contemporary fiction, drama, very, very character driven stories. And while this one still is, it was really my first. My first effort at dabbling into writing a thriller or something that's more action based.
Hmm.
So I'm very excited about this character, the whole group of characters, the world that we've created here in this fictitious town, and I'd absolutely love to continue writing in this series for sure.
Have you already started on something new, a new project?
I've kicked around a few ideas. A lot of my efforts in the last, like book 1, Go Home Afton, came out in June 25th, and since then has pretty well just been marketing in one capacity or another. I still had to finish up writing book 4 actually when book 1 came out. So the last little bit has just been kind of figuring out the next moves, right? So I'm for sure going to write something else in between. So the next release I have after these 4 books will not be another installment in the Afton Morrison series, but I would love to revisit it at some point for sure. And whether what I write next will be kind of along the same vein of thriller, crime fiction, suspense, that type of idea. I'm not 100% sure. I keep this notepad of ideas of things that I'd like to write one day. And I don't know if other writers do it this way. I don't know. But for me, it's kind of almost like going down the list. I keep adding things to it. And then when I'm ready to start a new project or sometimes even a short story, it's like just going down that list and saying, hey, that was a cool idea. No idea when I thought of it, when I first came up with it. But that's what I feel like writing right now. So so what is that going to be next? I'm not 100% sure. But yeah.
People should follow you on Twitter and Facebook and find out as things unfold what you're doing.
That would be good. They should start the Afton Morrison series. There's still 2 more books to be released, right?
Yeah. And actually, if you guys are curious about that series right now, if you go on over to the coordinating blog post, there is an excerpt from Go Home Afton, and you can get a little sneak peek before you buy it. So be sure to check that out. All right. So is there anything else, Brent, that you would like to share before we do the lightning round? Do you know what the lightning round is?
I didn't realize we're coming up on it already, though. But let's see. Anything else I want people to know? No, follow me. That's about it. Follow me. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, @author Brent J. And if you jump on over to my website, I'm assuming that's going to be in the show notes, authorbrentjones.com. I am giving away a free book right now. It's a mystery book. I'm not going to say that it's Go Home Afton, but I'm not going to say that it isn't either. So, jump over to the website, see what you get. You'll find the button, give me a free book, see what you get.
Sounds good. Okay, so let me tell you about the lightning round. It's super fun. It's a feature that I recently brought back to the interviews, and I just love it. The audience loves it. And so it's 60 seconds, and you just answer as many questions as you can. Some are book related, some are not. Some questions are open-ended, and others require you to pick one or the other, kind of the would you rather scenario. Okay. The only rule is that you must choose. You can't say neither, you can't say both, and you can't skip.
I can't say pass. All right.
No.
Okay.
Nope,
all right.
That's it.
Okay.
Okay, you ready to do it?
I will try to answer as quick. As you notice, I'm not an overly concise person speaking, at least, right? So, I'll try to keep my answers as short and brief as possible. Okay, I'm ready.
It's your party. You can do how you want. Some people answer 5 questions.
I'll try for once in a podcast style environment to keeping things short. We'll see how it goes.
All righty, here we go. Physical books or ebooks?
Ebooks.
Hero or villain?
Hero.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Bookstore or library?
Library.
Vodka or tequila?
Tequila.
If you could pick one superpower, what would it be?
Invisibility.
Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Windows or Mac?
Mac. No, Windows. What am I saying? Windows.
Cliffhanger or realistic ending?
Well, you said I can't say both, but cliffhanger.
Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Name a book that you've read in one sitting.
Oh my goodness. Off the top of my head, I'm blanking here.
It's okay. Time's up.
See, there's the last one. I do have an answer for that last question, though.
Oh, you can answer it. You can go for it.
My cover designer, I can't even tell you his name because he doesn't use his full name online anywhere. But he's designed all the covers for the Afton Morrison books, and he wrote a collection of short stories about aliens visiting Earth. They're one-pagers. There's 82 short stories in one Kindle ebook. I read that in one sitting. It's called Alien Baggage Allowance.
Awesome.
And it's Alien Baggage Allowance. I thought it was really funny. I have a warped sense of humor, so it really appealed to me. But yeah.
Sounds like a good recommendation.
It's fun. If you go into it without expectations, you'll laugh a few times for sure, and it's not a long read. So
sounds good. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here, Brent. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So everyone, be sure to follow Brent on his social media. Pick up a few installments of the Afton Morrison series. The links for everything are below in the show notes. Again, Brent, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for taking the time. And that's it for today's episode. Thanks for spending the time with us here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. And as always, happy reading. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed today's book chat episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review. You can follow me on Twitter at Shelf Addiction. Most importantly, you can share this podcast with friends and family that enjoy all things bookish, including author interviews. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.